Hey, you cats and kitty cats out there. This is CIUT's Howl with Nik Beat. And it's Black History Month, and we are going to be talking to a number of individuals on our show. In the next minute, sit back and relax. It's CIUT's Howl radio show on 89.5 FM. My bad side.
Okay, I'll go to the other side.
0.5 FM. I'm the host of Howl Radio. Howl Radio is a spoken word music art talk show. And originally it was put together, cobbled together by myself and poet Steve Humphrey. And laterally Steve left after a couple of years, and my good friend Nancy Bullis co-hosts the show with me. She's going to be away for a while. I'm going to be doing the next 4 shows, including tonight. Nancy is going to be away with her husband Larry. Anyway, this is Black History Month. It's a very interesting time in Black history because, of course, we've got a Black Afro-American president, and we've also got a lot of changes in the scene, and we're going to be talking about that tonight with my first guest, someone who's been on the show a couple of times before. She's a poet, raconteur. She is a life model. She is a personality, a media personality. Please welcome to the Howl Show, Gaye Boston. Gaye, are you there?
I am here. Hi, Nick. How are you?
I'm fine, Gaye. You know, you couldn't be here tonight because your husband Tim is ill.
Yes, he got sick at the last minute. I was like all ready to trim myself for radio attire, and I had to just take everything off. It's unfortunate.
Well, hopefully he didn't become sick all of a sudden because of Howl or CIUT. No, it can't be.
No, he loves the Howl Show. He always stays, and he's usually in the booth, and he's be watching and listening the whole time. So he's a good sport when it comes to the Howl Show.
Talking about Howl and CIUT, by the way, our fundraisers month is coming up. I think it starts April 9th. A whole week, CIUT will be raising money because we don't just depend on corporate sponsorship. We also depend on you, the listener. So we'll be doing that in April. There'll be more details about that in next week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Can I ask you, Gaye, just off the top, Black History Month, does it mean anything to you as a African-Canadian person?
Yes. Well, Black History Month is like saying, continue to be great, continue to be you, and whatever it is that you do to move fairly forward is, like, it's being backed by more than many. Like, you know?
Okay.
So, it's a good thing.
Okay, some people that have been on my show that are from African-Canadian backgrounds they make light of it because it's the joke that black people get the shortest month of the year. Yeah, I mean, do you care about that, or does that bother you at all?
Nick, for me, it's regardless, it's like having your birthday the day after Christmas. Like at Christmas, everyone is happy-go-lucky. People who celebrate it are treated extra special. Then the following day, they try to convince you that you're the true king. Well, I feel a little skeptical too, because I think that the day after that, maybe they would announce treason. Like, my birthday is in March. I celebrate not only my birthday, but I celebrate my zodiac sign. So I'm Pisces, which, in fact, that starts tomorrow, and it ends on March 20th. So I'm celebrating Black History Month, but then I'm sharing it with my Piscean celebrations, and of course my birthday, for good reason, comes and goes, and before I know it, it's all about Aries. You know what? I thought I was king! So.
This is Nik Beat. We're talking to activist, raconteur, life model, and poet, Gaye Boston. We're celebrating Black History Month, of course, on CIUT all through February, so I'll be back on next week. Now, we are did have a scheduled show. I had my book launch on February 4th, so I couldn't be in the studio to do a Howl show with Robert. But I did cobble together a really good show on hip-hop with Moshe. Unfortunately, it couldn't be played for technical reasons. We are going to be playing excerpts from it on the next week's show, so look out for that. It was on specifically on hip-hop, Canadian hip-hop. Wakefield Brewster and Moshe and myself are going to be talking about that. But we're talking to Gaye Boston right now. A little later, we're going to be talking to Mario Lopez, who's in the studio, to talk with us. And then a little later, we're going to have an unusual turn of events in the interview situation. I'm going to be interviewed, not going to be interviewing. I'm going to be interviewed by Pat Connors, and Pat's going to be asking me some very excellent questions, I'm sure. But that's a little in the second half of the show. Right now we're talking to Gaye Boston. Gaye, do you have a poem that you could share with us, or a story?
Well, I wish I did. Technically, I've been working my tail off for my debut book to follow in the giant footsteps of Nik Beat. And it seems like, because I'm self-publishing, I didn't go with a publisher, unlike you, everything is another issue, and I take it as a gift, in fact, when there's a glitch, because I'm doing ebooks. And so I've uploaded it to Kindle and uploaded it to iBook, and things happen that are technical, that are beyond my control, and I'm rolling with the punches. So when I thought I would have this out by 3 weeks back, I've obviously I've flatlined with all my deadlines, is what I've done.
Okay. What's the book called?
It's called I Grow Young, 10 Steps Back to Youth Forward.
Oh, that's the full title. Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a long title.
And what is it? What is it, Gaye? Is it stories? Is it poetry? Is it fiction, nonfiction?
Well, it is nonfiction. It is a novel that was extracted from me. It's a response to respond to people asking me over and over, how do I stay so young, because they can't believe I'm a grandmother. So I did, in fact, pull together 10 good, solid tips that I could share with my readers, with 4 fundamental truths to lay those down on. And hopefully they enjoy it, and they could stop with the nagging questions of, well, how old are you really? It's like, well, yeah. I think it's not that. I don't think it's about that anymore.
Okay. This is Nik Beat. We're talking to activist and life model and artist and poet and writer now, Gaye Boston. And Gaye's been on our show a number of times over the years. We're celebrating Black History Month. Is there any date in Black history that means extra special to you? A lot of people say April 4th is when Martin Luther King was murdered. I can't really remember the exact date when Rosa Parks was arrested in 1955 for not giving up her seat for a white guy.
Yeah.
Which sort of started the whole bus boycott and Martin Luther King's eventual involvement. Well, is there any dates for you, Gaye, that mean anything in the Black history context?
I would have to say that all dates that, something great happened on that was by great leaders would mean something to me if I retained it in my head in that way. I'm a, abstract thinker, so I do think of them in the same way that I would see my mother, as my late mother, as a, leader. And do I really know that after more than 20 years that she's passed, do I attach all of her greatness to the death date? No, never. It's just, it's not that. It would be their persona, and that outlives any timeline.
Okay, let's talk about an issue that's rarely talked about within the context of Black History Month, which is colorism. What does that mean? What does that term mean?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, and I know that it's the rage now that at least Oprah's trying to talk to it, and that's racism within a race. So blacks against blacks, blacks not appreciating blacks. I am a darker black woman, which I love my skin, but someone who is fairer than me may look at me and say, that can never be seen as pretty, as attractive, as beautiful. And, I haven't come across them yet.
Why is this, though? I mean, you even find that in other cultures. I mean, in Chinese culture, sometimes you see people with umbrellas during the daytime. They're actually protecting their skin from darkening. So light skin in Indian cultures, you look at Bollywood films, the lighter-skinned Indians are the big stars. Why is that? Why is that lighter skin valued in all kinds of cultures? I don't understand that. Do you know why?
I don't definitely fall for that one, but I can see that media and society, and I personally have always had very high self-esteem. I think Dr. Lopez could speak to that a lot more than me, because to get down to the raw nitty-gritty of it, but I'm aware that it is there in the sense that I studied fashion art, and I would say that as far as supermodels, you can tell coming down the runway, there's three. So that tells me that maybe the selection for black faces aren't high, but...
Okay, well, this may be the point where we introduce Dr. Mario Lopez, who's actually in the studio with us. Welcome, Doctor, to Howl. It's good to have you here. I need to get really a lot closer into the mic. That's it.
Thank you.
Doctor, this issue of colorism, what do you think?
There is one significant factor in terms of what I know of Indian culture, and that is not universal extensive, but the fact that people working outside in the sun, their skin gets dark. A light skin is an indication of someone who's not a manual laborer.
Oh, I never even thought of that.
So it might seem like a racist, but it's more of an elitist.
Oh, would you say that applies to black culture the same way? Why is there such maybe prejudice within the culture itself against darker skin? Would it be the same? Would it be applicable?
There is an apocryphal story about the American base. The Americans had a base in Trinidad, and they had an officers' club, and the story was that you had to be fairer than a particular brown paper bag to pass for white.
Jesus.
Now,
wow.
That is not a true story, but there is the expression in Trinidad, which is where I'm from, to pass for white, that certain lighter complexion people were given admission to certain social situations. My godmother, who is the same complexion as Gaye, her father was the first black member of the House of Lords. When she was leaving England to come to Trinidad, and she told her father that she wanted to play golf, he said, "You won't get a chance to play golf in Trinidad because of the color of your skin."
Really?
But if she was lighter, she probably would have been more readily accepted. So in that respect, there's an element of the colonial past trying to be as close to the complexion of the governing class, the plantation classes. And you had, to go a little bit higher up the Caribbean, you've got, in Jamaica, they would talk about people who were quadroons, who were a quarter black, octoroons, who were 1/8 black, and it was quite stratified and classified, that along the decreasing pigmentation, it was an increasing social status. And it was because in a plantation society, the leaders, the highest members of society, were the plantation owners, who were almost invariably white. But you did have free coloreds who were of mixed race, who were also landowners, and you did have a lot of intermarriage, interracial relations outside of marriage as well. So you had a mosaic of different colors, and the closer someone's color mimicked that of the ruling class, the more acceptable they were to the ruling class. That is one aspect of it. I'm not saying that universally applies to all areas of it, because I know in certain other cultures, like some of the Asian cultures, where they would actually, some of the women actually bleach their skin, and you don't have a European white ruling class. So that's called Nik Beat for now. I'll work on it.
Okay. Gaye, what do you think about what the doctors just talked about? Do you agree with that? Have you heard that?
I totally, at Mario, I totally hear you on that. I definitely did, or I do realize that they will take it that far, and it won't be just skin complexion that they will push to that limit. If we're going to talk Asian culture as well, when they would bind their feet, well, to say you didn't even have to work, you don't have to walk, like different things that people associate with, I guess, being in a higher social class can sometimes be disturbing and perverted as well. So I would put this colorism, and if it's going to be related to skin color, in that same boat, like as that, because it's so. I don't do it. I don't engage in it. So I would expect people to grow out of their illusions anytime soon.
Okay, this is Nik Beat on CIUT 89.5 FM. This is Howl. Spoken Word Show comes at you every Tuesday night from 10 to 11 p.m. Hope you're enjoying the show. We're celebrating Black History Month. This is more a roundtable discussion rather than poetry and prose being talked about. We're here with Dr. Mariel Lopez. I'm going to actually, Gaye, since you were good enough to get Dr. Lopez in here, to introduce Dr. Lopez for those of my listeners who obviously don't know who Dr. Lopez is, what he does. So could you do that for me?
Yes. Dr. Lopez and I met at a Toastmasters conference, and he was speaking on cultural intelligence, as he will speak tonight about it. And I sat in on his workshop. He was there accompanied by Renee, and who also spoke on the topic. And I was like blown away, because I go, what? It was a whole new window that he opened up to me. And after that, I said, oh, please, can I come to, shadow you at work? Because he's also a vet for horses, and I'm going, I need to come out to the stables and just watch you work. And that as well, I was fortunate enough that he allowed me to watch and follow him through that. But definitely, as a fellow Toastmaster, I know he's quite gifted and eloquent in speaking, and I love to hear him say anything. So I'll definitely just let Dr. Lopez take the mic.
Okay, just before I do, Doctor, what is just for those who totally don't know what Toastmasters means? What does it mean? What does it do? What's the organization?
It's an organization that promotes the art of public speaking. There are groups that meet weekly or every other week on a particular regular basis, and you practice public speaking. You are coached, mentored, and encouraged to produce, write, and give speeches. And there's a program of a number of speeches that you have to give to become what they be designated a competent communicator. And it's a great way of organizing your speaking skills, speaking habits, and particularly in the club that I'm a member of, which is a Keynote Advanced Toastmasters, which is an advanced club. When you speak in all the Toastmasters, part of the process is that you present a speech and you'll be given an evaluation. In the Keynote Advanced Toastmasters, we are very proud of the level of our evaluations, that we not just there to say, great, you did a nice job. We say, you did a nice job, but this is what you could do better. So you are critiqued and unsupported, and there are lots of different levels that you can attain. But for me, what I've found it really good for is actually knowing that I'm not as good a speaker as I thought I was, and getting better at it, organizing the way I write and present my speeches so that they're much more palatable, much more effective, much more powerful.
Okay. This is Nik Beat. We're talking to Dr. Mario Lopez and Gaye Boston. A little later in the second half of the show, I'm going to be interviewed on my own show by Patrick Connors. And Patrick, of course, has had a book out by Lyrical Miracle Press called Scarborough Songs, and we'll talk about that and hopefully get Pat actually to read something apart from the interview, actually get some poems. I'm going to read a couple of poems from my new book, thanks again to Lyrical Miracle Press. And Luciano Giacovelli. It was a hugely successful launch, and I'm actually out of books now, so I have to get some more from Luciano because the demand has been quite extensive. And Gaye actually bought a copy. Did you not, Gaye?
I did, and I got a signed copy.
Yeah, a signed copy. So that which is great, and thanks Gaye, very much for that. Gaye, can I ask you one thing before we get to Dr. Lopez again? Have you had added or any kind of sort of prejudicial behavior against yourself because you are married to someone who is not black? Has that happened within the black context, community-wise?
I personally know that, just like Tim is Caucasian, he's white, he's Scottish, and I don't feel it when I'm around my personal family because they're just so loving and they accept. Mm-hmm. But you definitely, when you go outside of you would just be at a public space where you're not in no way you know these people and their opinions of you it's none of your business. So I might say they might have some different thoughts than mine. I don't expect everyone to fall in love with them, otherwise I'd lose them, right?
Sure.
So.
And of course, I mean, of course, within the context of Canada in the last 50 or 60 years, I mean, I can remember the time when any interracial couple was looked upon disapprovingly by the public at large, and in Canada, within the context of Canada.
I'm happy you said that, Nik, because I have to say, you're asking me the question, and now that I know you're going to be interviewed, I need to interview myself when really thinking about this. I was the one who looked at an interracial couple and stopped because of their age. So I don't know if it's ageism, but they were so much older. I go, as if you guys are together. Like, how did you endure, because I'm thinking, oh, for sure you would have gotten pegged as whatever, that what you're talking about, where it wasn't allowed. And I thought, wow, look at you. And, it's obvious that they've been together for forever and well into, their 80s. And I'm awestruck. I'm like, wow.
This is Nik Beat. We're talking to Gaye Boston on CIUT 89.5 FM. And this is a Howl, spoken word, talk show, art show, music. The opening track that you heard tonight was Morchiba. We're actually going to play some Sankoba, track 4, right now. And then a break for an ad, and then we'll be back with Dr. Mario Lopez, Gaye Boston, and a few minutes later, Pat Connors. This is Nik Beat. Enjoy the music. This is Sankoba. Yeah, we're off air right now. Yeah, for a few minutes.
I dated a black woman, and her friends asked, why are you dating a white man? And her response was, they could look in black men or either in jail or dating fat white women. But I didn't think that would fly over there.
No, you're giving it. See, what you're doing is you're giving a personal anecdote, not an opinion.
But I
Let's
prefer,
talk about
I
it.
prefer to pass it to you
Sure.
first. I'm
Sure.
I'm happy saying it over the air.
Well, I can just say during the break you gave me a personal anecdote. Would you share it? You don't
Yeah.
have to, but if you'd like to, that's fine.
Part of my, I don't know if Renee sent you the written email that I sent you, that part of my interest is, I'm actually from a multicultural background. I don't look multicultural, but when I took a picture of my grandparents' wedding to get a copy made, the lady said, "Oh, that's the Indian side of your family, because they are as dark, almost as dark as Gaye. But my mother is from Austria."
Your mom's from Austria?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, but I grew up in the Caribbean, so I grew up in a multicultural environment, but also at home, I had a mother trying to raise me as a European, and in school and on the playground, it was Caribbean.
Wow.
So there's and then when Renee was the person who introduced me to this whole concept of cultural intelligence by a presentation she made at Toastmasters, and I was quite impressed by the whole concept of it, but also I was kind of disturbed by the very Western centrism of some of the work that's being done. Like in this particular book, put out by the Cultural Intelligence Center, there are 25 references on the back. 12 of them come from business publications. So it's, all geared to business. And Mr. Hofstede, his original thesis, well, maybe not his thesis, but his original work, was to help IBM cope with the different workers in different parts of the world, the cultural differences. But so you were looking at a particular selection of people from the different cultures. So it's wonderful, but I think you need to look at it from a little different perspective and a little bit more of a social and interpersonal relation, rather than just a business.
A business.
A business and university to university, but right down to the more basic lives of people. And the other aspect is too that these are not so much cultural dimensions, but they're really social dimensions that tend to predominate in specific cultures. And if you look at it from that way, it gives you a little bit more of an open mind to look at somebody as, from this culture, you're more likely to get this, rather than from this culture, everybody's like that.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Actually, we'll talk briefly about the, and then we'll get Pat. And Pat, you can join in. I'm going to introduce you, and you can join in if you like before we do our interview. Yeah, please. I'd like to know your opinions on the subject.
For sure.
And
it's a very important subject.
Yeah, definitely.
It's good that you're talking about that right now, and it's really good that you got somebody like Dr. Lopez.
Wasn't well, I'll ask that I'll ask it
Yes.
on the thing about Haiti, because Haiti was the first black republic, was it not?
Yeah.
In 1798 or something, or
Something,
1802?
I think it was the 1700s, and one of the reasons, and this is why it's great, my godmother is very into politics and stuff. She's principal of a girls' secondary school in Trinidad. But one of the reasons Haiti is so poor is that up until, they might still be, but it was not very long ago, that they were still paying compensation to France, for having
Unbelievable.
seized the French property.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. This will be 30 seconds. Okay, you cats and kitty cats out there, this is Nik Beat, a host of Howl Radio, spoken word, talk, music, and that was signed Kolba. A beautiful piece from one of his excellent albums. We're back in the studio at Hard House, University of Toronto, downtown campus in Toronto, of course, and it is February 18th on a winter that has been like the worst I've experienced in 30 years living here. It's just been awful. So hopefully it'll be over very, very soon. I do want to do one self-serving announcement before I forget. It's called Painter, Poet, Beggar, Thief. It's featuring Norman Allen, Nik Beat, Brenda Clues, Jennifer Hossein, and Luciano Giacobelli. And there's an open mic. Saturday, March 1st, 3:30 p.m. at the Urban Gallery. That's at 400 Queen Street East, between something like Church and Parliament, I believe. And the Urban Gallery is a beautiful gallery, and you should check out the art of Brenda Clues. It's still there. It's excellent. That's an event I'll be part of. We're in the studio now talking with Dr. Mario Lopez, and of course we're joined now by Pat Connors. Pat, welcome to Howl again.
Thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate it, especially during Black History Month. It's a very important time in Canadian culture in general.
Definitely. Dr. Lopez, let's talk about the book, Cultural Intelligence. The book is called Customs of the World Using Cultural Intelligence to Adapt Wherever You Are. What does that mean? What do you mean cultural intelligence? What's that about?
Cultural intelligence is a fairly recent concept, and it refers to the ability to interact and be successful and communicate across a variety of different cultural milieu. And it requires an understanding of some of the fundamental differences between cultures and an appreciation of your own cultural, for want of a better word, prejudices and fixations, and being able to modify those when you're interacting with people from different cultures, so that you can enhance communication, enhance cooperation, and provide a better world.
Who sponsored this book? Where can people get it, if they can?
Well, this particular book, it's the part of what they call the Great Courses, which is an American organization that produces educational material on DVDs and audio. And this I got because of my interest in cultural intelligence from other sources, and I was trying to expand my knowledge, and the breadth of my knowledge. And one of the things that I found interesting with this particular book is that although it purports to be cultural intelligence and customs of the world, of the 25 references in the back, 12 of them are from business publications. So it's primed more towards cultural intelligence, making the most out of business relationships. And I am much more interested in making the most of social relationships, personal relationships, political relationships, as much as business. I mean, business is a big part of all of this, but it's not the only thing. And I think by concentrating on business, you tend to lose a lot. Another little beef I have about a lot of what's written by the cultural intelligence schools, the intelligentsia, is that most of these, everyone I've come across so far, is a Western scholar. So there's very much a Western bent to it.
Centricism, yeah.
And as a Caribbean person, I take a little bit of exception to the people from the United States taking the name American, where the whole two continents and a whole pile of islands are all American. So it's we're South Americans, we're Caribbeans, but there is a dominant culture, and there's a tendency in this particular book, although he is trying hard not to be an ugly American, he doesn't quite make it to pretty yet.
Right. This is Nik Beat. We're talking to Dr. Mario Lopez. In 2 minutes, we're going to be talking to Pat Connors, a little bit about his book Scarborough Songs, and then do an interview with me about my book that just came out with Lyrical Miracle Press. And also, these questions are, actually I've seen them, some of them anyway, earlier, and they're quite excellent, and he's also doing an article with the questions that I actually answered last week. We're a Howl, which is a spoken word show, and hope you're enjoying the show. One last question, talking about your background, the Caribbean background. You have a very interesting background. You're telling me during the break. Can you tell us again, for my audience, what it is? Because it's quite an interesting mix.
Well, my father is from Trinidad. His father is half Venezuelan, half Caribbean. His mother was a mixture of Portuguese, English, and some French, and my mother is Austrian. And so I grew up in the Caribbean, and although I have a Spanish name and I have a Caribbean voice, I have a very European look. I am fair in complexion. My brothers and sisters, every single one of us has a different complexion. We're like a little litter of mongrel pups. And growing up, I grew up in a home where my mom was trying to raise us as Europeans with European values, European rules. But in school and on the playground, it was very much Caribbean, so I had to cross cultures while I was growing up. So it's something that when I came across the whole concept of cultural intelligence, it really resonated with me, and it was something that I felt that maybe I had something to say, but certainly I had a lot to learn as well.
Well, Dr. Lopez, it's been a pleasure having you on Howl. A real pleasure. I want to thank Gaye Boston, too, for providing Dr. Lopez an informative voice. And I don't know if Gaye is still on the line, but Gaye, thank you for your patience. Thank you for being on Howl. Hope Tim gets better. Oh yeah, oh for sure, Gaye. Oh yeah, we'll have you, definitely have you back. I'd love to have you back in the studio. And this is Nik Beat on, sorry, go ahead, Dr. Lopez.
Thank you very much, Nick. And Gaye, it's been a pleasure, and I've really enjoyed doing this, and hope it's helped.
It has indeed. Thanks, Gaye. And God bless you. Hope Tim gets better. And this is Nik Beat on Howl Radio. If you just joined us, we're just finishing an interview with Dr. Mario Lopez. Yeah, I'm being pointed at. Why? What you're trying to get behind? It's okay, Pat. Don't worry about it. We'll get my bad side all night long. If you've just joined us, we're talking to Pat Connors. Pat, welcome again to another version of Howl.
Pleasure to be here.
Before we get to my interview, I'd love to hear a poem from your.
Sure.
Well, it's a poetry show, it's supposed to be, so it'd be nice to hear a poem.
Okay, well, it'd be appropriate for me to read this poem, Renaissance, because it was in Big Art Book 1 from 2 years ago. Right now is the call for Big Art Book 2014. If you'd like to be involved with that, go to www.scarborougharts.com /Big Art Book and look for the contest rules. And I'm going to submit to it again this year. And this is one of the poems that I submitted to Big Art Book 2012, and it's called Renaissance. Integrity turns to courageous hope, vision of what is and ought to be, only if and when we are ready to believe there is no fear in perfection. Audacious belief in what seems unlikely, fierce like the fire which consumes me, blazing the trail as I follow it, though I would rather not, I'll go it alone. Sorrow will surely lead to temptation, reason to artfully dwell and wallow. We cannot be holden to the bottom, for from there is nowhere to go but up. Allowing the bounty of limitless grace, growing in love we grow with each other, bonding together made ever stronger, instruments of the divine by way of the sublime. The race we run, not a sprint, but for the distance we breathlessly seek, and find in each other by want and need, delight and share as we follow the path. Does my heart seem to be open again? After ages alone, drifting in dreams of a time when anything could matter, breaking the barriers holding it down. universe which defines and shapes me, I long to fill you with how I feel, boundless energy towards your creation, as you make me a part of your all. Long have I waited to be completed, grown and felt and prospered and made ready. Every different day I approach the same, until the one which makes everything new.
That's Pat Connors on CIUT. Thanks, Pat. That's from
My
his
pleasure.
book, Scarborough Songs. Are there any more copies left that people can obtain, Pat?
I do have some copies. I'm going to be getting some more because I have applied for the BP Nickel Award. Not that I have any fantasies that I'm going to win it, but if I could be nominated, it would be incredible. And I'm still doing readings in support of it 2 weeks from last night. So Monday, March the 3rd, I am one of the features at the Blue Coffee Reading Series, hosted by our friend Minty St. Amand.
Yeah.
And really looking forward to that, and I'm going to be doing that in support of Scarborough Songs. It's still running its course.
Hey, good luck with the BP McNichol Award. I just love the way you put that. It's such typical Canadian fashion. We're very self-deprecating people, that's for sure. This is Nik Beat on CIUT, and we're just about to start an interview. Actually, Pat is going to be interviewing me, and that's about a new book that is out of mine called Famous for Fallen, The New Saints, Modern Day Saints, which are not people that are good, but for me, they're the people that are famous and suffered for it, or became famous because of their suffering or whatever. And before we do the interview, I'm going to just read the lead poem from the book. It's called Poems for the Famous. Poems for the famous, for the fallen, for the gods that lost their calling. Here's to the famous, here's to the fallen, wasted, soiled, vanquished, crawling. They did not realize, they did not feel ashamed that they couldn't in the end see through the game that says that being a star just means more people who don't know who you are. That's the lead poem in the book, Famous for Fallen. All the poems are dedicated to different famous figures, some more infamous than others, some more famous than others. They did a survey of children all over the world in 100 countries. Do you know what these kids said is their number one goal to be in life? Not to be a doctor, not to be a lawyer, to be famous.
To be famous.
And this is like in 100 different cultures.
Right.
That's how life has changed because of TV, the internet.
This is what has happened to society in the last 60 or so years.
Yeah, it's incredible. Incredible.
And as Nick said, there is an article. It's actually on newsforyou.net right now. That's NEWZ, the number 4, the letter, number 4, the letter U.net, newsforyou.net. And this is partially a reprise of the interview that I did with him, but I'm also incorporating some questions that we didn't get into the article for space limitations, and also threw him a few curveballs just to make it fresh and spontaneous and live radio. Poems for the Famous is such a great way to start the book. People know where you're coming from as soon as they read the poem. Why do you feel, as a society, that we are so fascinated with the heroes, especially ones who fall?
I just think that's simple because people themselves don't value themselves. They don't see any dramatic aspect to their life or lifestyle. So we sort of co-opted by identifying some image, because that's all we're getting. Like I realize I've loved the Beatles all my life. I love them, but loved the Beatles all my life. I never even met them.
Right.
They've only been an image or on CD, and I thought about it. I've never known them, except as some kind of an image, and that's the fascination. When a human being is made into an icon, all of a sudden they get this golden glow about them, precisely because of the framing.
Right.
You know, and that seems to be ubiquitous now. I hope I answered the question. I don't know if I did.
Well, why was it so important for you to write this book, Nick?
Because I have the same disease as everybody else.
Right.
As all these kids.
I
want to be
stars,
famous.
Sports
We all want to
figures,
be stars.
Artists.
Sports figures, as you said.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Sure. I'd love to be famous.
Right.
You know, I'm deeply insecure about myself, and that would definitely compensate on some level to pump my ego up a little bit. You know, all these kids. Why do I do radio? It's partly an ego trip on some level.
Who are your influences, aside from the fact that you're showing these famous people, you're lionizing them to a point, but you're also glorifying them. Who are your influences? What influenced you? What were you reading that influenced you, or what were you experiencing? Maybe it was music because you're also a musician.
It was the Beatles.
Right.
You know, like millions of other people, there's before the Beatles existed, and then after the Beatles existed, and there's no exaggeration of how they changed everything. But as far as what I read, it would have to be Kerouac's On the Road for me.
Yeah.
Not that it's his best book, but it's his best image book. In other words, Dean Moriarty or Neil Cassidy, he's actually known in real life, is a central figure, iconographical figure that you can identify with, and you travel with him throughout the book. And he's a figure of freedom, and that was very compelling. Right. And the writing's very good, obviously.
Oh, for sure it is.
Yeah. So that was one person, and the Beatles too, obviously.
Now, which poem that we didn't talk about, since you're going to have your second edition of your book coming out shortly? What poem that we didn't talk about in the article when we did the original interview is really, really important and really central to the book?
Would have to be The Bride Stripped Bare, because that's like the name, partly the name of, or an abridged name of a very famous Marcel Duchamp piece that he made in the 20s or something.
Yeah.
It's based on an Andy Warhol factory acolyte actor named Freddie Herka. And Freddie Herka literally one night went on acid, was feeling suicidal, and literally danced his way at a party. He was danced his way right out of a window and killed himself.
Right.
And The Bride Stripped Bare is sort of, I use a bridal suite and wedding and ceremony as a way of showing a different way of suicide. A look at it.
Right.
And F. Scott Fitzgerald's famous for saying parties are a form of suicide.
Right.
And when you think about it, they are, because people push the limits.
Right.
Right? A lot of times at parties, sometimes they risk their lives.
Yeah. Well, stop the recovery period afterwards anyways.
Yep.
Now, one poem that, of course, we did talk about was Unseen Marilyn, and to me it was very important that we talked about that poem because for many reasons. I mean, you talk about the Beatles, and they were such huge stars of the 20th century. In so many ways, she was the biggest star. She was the biggest star of that era of the 50s and 60s and everything else. Now, why is there such a fascination about her in our culture, about her demise? I mean, you still see young women dressing up to make themselves look like her 60 years later.
That's true. The reason is because nobody knows her.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's her image that we're literally masturbating to on a certain level. I mean, that's what we're really doing. And if you go into my bedroom, it's full of her image.
Right.
But it's an image.
It's an instant image, yeah.
Yeah. And the poem is my way of breaking down the image.
Right.
Because she's seen as an image of a lot of things, but she's never seen as an image where death is celebrated within that image.
Right.
Because she had a lot of abortions. She had like 13 abortions, which is why she could never later conceive.
Right.
She always had miscarriages and stuff like that. That's heavy to me.
Yeah.
Whatever you feel about abortion, that's a heavy symbol of death.
Right.
Snuffing out death again and again.
Sure.
To somebody who's so full of life, it's a contradiction.
Yeah, she was very vivacious, for sure.
Very vivacious.
Now, another one of the reasons why I felt it was really important to talk about that poem, even though we didn't talk about it and it didn't make it to the original interview, is because the cover art on the book is a caricature of Marilyn Monroe. Please tell your listeners about who designed the cover art and the fact that it was such a collaborative thing.
The cover, where it's actually using her image, is my pop collage that I was commissioned to do by the Gallery Catalyst. I was commissioned to do whatever I wanted. If it was 4x4, 8x8, 10x10, I picked her, and it's one of her with a Marilyn Monroe doll with a frizzy gray coiled hair,
Right.
and also her image is actually beside her in a frame. And the person that took the picture, though, that was used for the book later, is a photographer, Tricia Smith.
Okay.
And the person that designed it, it was Luciana Giacobelli,
Okay.
the publisher of Lyrical Miracle.
Right on. Right on. So none of us ever does any of these things alone, right? There's
No.
always a collaboration. There's always a support network that's inherent to it. That's really awesome. And similarly, when you had the launch, you played with a really amazing bass player,
I did.
Michael
Michael Rat. Yeah, Michael is a goth, sort of, he's got a magazine called A Dark Place with his consort, Lady Silver. And I've known Mike a long time, and he's played various gigs with me and will continue to. He did a great job that night, even though, Pat, he was half a semitone out of
Right.
key to my guitar. Nobody
That
even
fits with the whole
noticed.
Southern goth sound, though. I mean, it actually.
That's
it
what
actually
everybody
made it
told
work.
me.
Yeah.
So that worked
Sure.
out fine.
For sure. And what is playing with a musician? What does that do to your poetry? What does that do to your performance?
It's less boring. Because let's face it, most poetry readings are deadly boring. And it's not because the poetry's boring, because most people don't know, and this sinks into the Toastmasters thing, how to do public speaking in an entertaining, vivacious way.
Right.
And music helps me entertain people while I'm delivering a poem.
Right.
That's why I do it.
And you already mentioned this reading that's coming up at the Urban Gallery on March the 1st, and that's going to be a very vivacious event. Brenda Clues is such an amazing performer, and Norman Allen performed with you at the launch, and he's an excellent performer, and I always love watching Jennifer. And so
We all like
what other
watching
readings?
Jennifer. She's very beautiful.
What other readings do you have in support of the book that you have upcoming that your listeners should know about?
That's a good question. I can't think of any right off the I've got a bunch, but I can't. I am hosting on the 18th of March at the Black Swan. I'll be doing some of my poems for my book then, but that's where I was hired as an MC. I've been doing MC work.
Is this for Hot Sauce Spirits?
No, this is for a completely different organization of like post-hippie hippies.
Oh, okay.
And
That's a Tuesday, March the 18th. That's at the Art Bar.
Well, maybe I've got the wrong date. God Almighty, here it goes. But anyway, I'm hosted to do that, and I've been hired to be an MC throughout my 22 years.
Yeah.
You know, I've been doing it a long, long time.
Well,
so I'm used to it.
It's about time. Luciano described you as being someone who's been a great servant to poetry, and it's about time that you've been served by poetry. You've done so much for people. You've done a lot for me. You've done a lot for a lot of other people through Howl, through your reading series, through everything else. And it's about time that this happened, Nick, and I'm really happy. I mean, I was there 10 years ago when you launched your previous book as well. But I'm really, really excited that this book has come out, and I'm really happy for you and really proud for you.
Thank you.
Tell your listeners what you've got coming up on Howl Radio in the next little while.
I will. We got next week, we got a friend, Wakefield Brewster, who is one of the top hip-hop artists in Canada, and I know that context. And hopefully that will be entertaining to our audiences. And I want to thank you, Pat, for doing this.
Oh, interview. My pleasure, my pleasure. And I usually end my interviews when I do a person-to-person interview with anything you'd like to add, in case there's something I forgot to ask.
No, I don't have anything to add except to thank you for doing this interview. And thank you
my
for
pleasure.
Let's let people know again the article that you're talking about.
Yes, it's titled "Famous for Falling," and it appears on www.newsforyou.net. That's NEWZ, the number 4, the letter U.net, which is edited by KJ Mullins, who is a wonderful online journalist. And check it out. It's I know it's getting hits and it's getting a good response. So go and check it out. You can get a little bit more and expand on some of the things that we've talked about here this evening.
Thanks, Pat, very, very much.
My pleasure.
This is Nik Beat. I'm back in the interview seat, and I hope you're enjoying the Howl Show. We've only got a couple of minutes left. I do want to let people know that We have continued CIUT programming. Sex City is coming up in the next few minutes. I want to thank my guests, Dr. Mario Lopez, of course, Pat Connors, my good friend Gaye Boston. I want to thank my videographer, Penelope Smith, who will be videotaping this. It will be out on YouTube within about 4 or 5 days. Also, all of our shows on CIUT are archived 24 hours post facto, whatever show date. And you can listen to our show audio-wise, watch it on YouTube. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Again, my gig with called Painter, Poet, Beggar, Thief is coming up with Norman Allen, Brenda Clues, Jennifer Hussein, and Luciano Giacobelli. Saturday, March 1st, 3:30 p.m. Please come, Urban Gallery, 400 Queen Street East. This is Nik Beat signing off, and thank you, Robert, of course, for taking the show beautifully. As usual, we always throw a monkey wrench at him, and he comes back and fixes everything. Very good to have him here. Thank you for listening to Howl. Uptune is now Sex City. Enjoy continued CIUT programming. Thank you.